stop them if they draw the right kinds of extenders, whereas Maliss does have a pretty big silver bullet in the format by the name of Artifact Lancia, and even cards like Chaos Hunter, which can be just really hard for duelists to play into, as there's really no way to really, dodge that. But maybe there is, and Javier might show us.
Ooh, I guess we shall see. Now, we did see a little bit of Artifact Lancia gameplay earlier in the tournament, right? And Crossout Designator can deal with it, but you still have to draw the Crossout Designator, an unsearchable quick play spell card.
Or you could just play an engine that doesn't lose to Lancia.
That's true,
That's
too.
always an idea, too. I mean, I don't want to spoil what Javier's doing, but, that could be a thing.
That is going to be exciting. Duelists seem like they're pretty comfortable on stage, sharing some smiles. Both of these competitors well known in their own right, but again, only one of these duelists can leave with a win, or maybe the unfortunate draw there, but just good to see these duelists in their element. Again, both regional champions, or recent regional champions, sporting that beautiful orange deck box. But now we're going to game 1 of round 6 of YCS Houston.
Will the Ryzeals dominate and detonate, or will the Maliss infect these robots with some malware and take it home? We have a 4 coming from Javier, and Bryan is going to be rolling on 11. That's a little bit more than 4, I think.
Yeah, just a little bit. So I assume he's going to go first and set up a powerful Ryzeal board.
Super excited to see what he's also supplementing his Ryzeal deck with. As you can see, the thing I was mentioning, yes, Javier is playing Bystial Maliss with some Fiendsmith cards thrown in. If you want to play cards that are good against Lancia, cards like Fiendsmith are super awesome.
Well, the Bystials will certainly help too, right? There are plenty of light pyro monsters in this deck, so see what he starts off with. Looks like it's going to be Bonfire.
And again, I mentioned earlier last time Ryzeal was on screen, sometimes this shows a little bit of weakness from their hand, but it can also just represent a lot of strength too if they already have a bunch of cards in hand. But here we see Javier looking at it as a sign of weakness and going to choose to Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring that Bonfire and stop it from being used.
Doesn't seem like Bryan's going to do anything about that. I did catch what appeared to be a 7 Tachyon, but now we're going into the Surfacing Big Jaws. It's water time.
Yes, that's a really awesome card from Rage of the Abyss that if you've activated a spell card this turn can special summon itself and search for a shark monster. Let's see what shark card Bryan's going to go after here.
So that's interesting too. Now you have to think about if they open up with Bonfire, maybe they're just trying to get that spell card out of the way, and it doesn't even matter if the effect gets negated. So be careful with your Ash Blossoms, friends. It's dangerous out there.
And there we see Drake Shark, basically a pop lore for the shark archetype. Whenever it's added to your hand, no matter where it's added from, graveyard, deck, doesn't matter, you can automatically summon to the field. And there we go into Ryzeal Duo Drive using those 2 level 4 monsters and doing what this card does, activating its effect. Maybe Javier's now regretting using his Ash Blossom, but he has Ghost over it, Snow Rabbit. That will also deal with the Duo Drive because it needs to remove on resolution.
Oh, goodness. A lot of resources lost there. There was really a lot of different things you could do. You could have gone for a Bahamut Shark there and maybe gotten totally awesome, but it wouldn't have felt like a full Ryzeal combo. And so now he's locked with just a few cards. Looks like maybe a Metal Tronus. Oh, big passing turn.
So Javier was correct. That Bonfire, like you said, even though it did enable the Surfacing Big Jaws, maybe was a sign of weakness in the hand. And now Javier gets to begin his turn. And when you give Maliss a free turn going first, it's really nice.
Now let's see. Maliss fans are about to get what they wished for, a cool Maliss combo, but we'll see which monster comes out first.
I did see the Dormouse in hand, so we definitely have some way to play here, but does Bryan have any non-engine in his hand that could interact with that?
Well, it looks like he's holding on to a Mulcharmy Fuwalos. He doesn't want to telegraph that just yet, hoping to discard it after the monsters hit the field.
And I was talking about Bonfire being a sign of weakness from Ryzeal players. Setting a card face down before you commit into any other plays is a super huge sign of strength for a Maliss player, because if they have any Maliss normal summon, that face down represents an MTP, GWCO6, or maybe even a TB11 that can just make your combos super resilient to any non-engine.
Speaking of combos, here is the combo starter. It is Maliss Dormouse. So I think we're going to make our first move on the field.
Yeah, this will let you banish any Maliss monster from your deck, and then if it's a Maliss name that can summon itself from the banish, that can be really powerful.
Are you guys keeping track of that?
Right, so
Javier asking to make sure he can keep track of his own life points. Always good to make sure. There's going to be all kinds of things flying here. Huge shout out to our production staff. They're going to be doing a lot of changes in life points, I think, this round.
Oh, I can hear that beep, 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 beep from here.
Yeah. I know the vibes.
Yep, so there we see the White Rabbit being banished. We're going to immediately use its effect, paying 300 life points to try and summon it from the banish pile.
And really, there's not a lot that can punish Maliss. And I know that sounds very silly when there's Artifact Lancia in the format, but other than Artifact Lancia, maybe you're looking for a Mulcharmy Meowls and hasn't seen as much popularity in the main deck, even though it can get a lot of resources there. But speaking of resources, here comes Fuwalos for some extra draws.
Yeah, like you said, there's no real punish, like in the sense of stopping Maliss from doing stuff, but there are cards like Mulcharmy Fuwalos, Mulcharmy Meowls that can incentivize them to not do as much as they could. But with this setup, Javier might be going for something like, with this, I guess he's deciding if he wants to chain to that. No, he's going to use the White Rabbit's effect to set a trap card from his deck. It's going to be interesting to see what he chooses to go for here. He could very well combo off and just try to go for game and just like not care about the Fulos at all. Because besides drawing Nibiru, I can't really think of any cards that Bryan would have to stop him from going for a game this turn. At this point, given that he has so much protection by his trap cards, that if he just gets to a Cryptor, he can very easily get enough damage to win the game.
Javier is certainly not uncommon in Ryzeal, but not as popular because you don't typically want to tribute some of your most powerful monsters out there. So it's kind of a 50-50 mix-up. Javier's got to consider whether or not to go in here, and doesn't seem like he's going to do it. He just attacks with the Maliss Dormouse and Maliss White Rabbit.
I really respect this from Javier. Both of his Maliss monsters are being boosted by his Dormouse, giving them plus 600 attacks. We're going to be doing, I believe, a total of 3,300 damage here, because it's 15 plus 18.
And I think we're just making sure the calculations are right there. A lot of math.
And then what Javier's might look to do here is just like go for a much more minuscule combo, maybe just end like on a IP or an SP and just go, here's one draw. You didn't have much in your hand this turn. I doubt you'll have any more. Go ahead.
Information-wise, you certainly know that Bryan is on the ropes because he did nothing after losing that first Xyz monster. And so, yes, an IP Masquerena is going to give one more draw. But I guess from Javier's perspective, he just doesn't see it as that much of a threat. Just one extra card should be okay.
Yeah, if Javier is playing the Bystial Maliss version that I'm aware of that plays the feats with the cards, he plays it more like a control deck rather than like a combo go-for-game deck.
Ah, I see, because you could use one of your Bystials to banish one of your Maliss monsters, and then use IP Masquerena to do a Link summon during your opponent's turn. Really great way to basically wait out the Molcharmi Fualos.
I don't want to like do too much predicting here and then have Javier not do what I'm saying, but something you could do with IP Masquerena is summon Heart's Cryptor during your opponent's turn and get the non-target banished that way.
Oh, yeah.
And we know he has MTPO7 set, and thus he gets the 2 non-target banishes while only giving away 1 draw to the opponent under Fua. That's really awesome.
Well, speaking of awesome, looks like we're going to get X Ryzeal here, and we're going to send Myriologic Aggregator to the graveyard. Going to go ahead and negate the IP Masquerena before it can really do anything meaningful.
So what we could do here is we could chain to that, summoning from the yard, and then have IPB Chainlink 1. So that way, I guess, yeah. So we would do IP, and then we would chain to that the effect to summon the monster from grave.
But I don't think you could because there were no monsters on the field at the time. So it looks like we're just going to let it get negated for now and search out with X Ryzeal.
You're completely right. And there we see the power of X Ryzeal in the Ryzeal deck, just being the ultimate breaker of boards.
And getting a quick peek there. Definitely seeing some 7th Tachyons in Bryan's deck as he shuffles through it. It's a really cool card. We haven't gotten to see it resolve that much. But in this deck particularly, getting to be able to grab those water cards too could be very, very helpful. But looks like he's just going to go for a little bit further in. Thinking about maybe an Xyz summon as he cycles through the graveyard. Maybe attaching a material.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to figure out what those sets might be and how he can play through them. Like, he knows he has one of the Maliss, I believe it's GWCO6 that Javier set last turn.
Yeah, that's a known. So time for our first Xyz summon here. Maybe he goes for the duo drive and tries again. If he's running 2, that is.
If it is the pure version of Ryzeal, I'd assume that they would be playing 2.
Could also just try to go for the detonator to push, and that's what he's doing, likely to grab the Myriologic Aggregator out of the graveyard.
Having that potential to negate another card seems really worth it.
Definitely helps. The timing of it can be very tricky, but it's still a great way to be able to get stuff. We haven't seen a lot of Eclipse Twin pushes so far. I guess the Bahamut Shark has kind of taken that slot up for that early Xyz summon.
Yep, so there we see the Ice Ryzeal coming down, going to be summoning another one from the deck. We could probably get our access to another sword, maybe? Just to have one, or just getting another X? May as well get those names in rotation.
Anything on the resolution?
It's nice to have the rank 4 toolbox kind of back in action. So many different rank 4 monsters from throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. And see what we get next. I would imagine now sky's kind of the limit, but we are going for another duo drive.
Yep.
Duo to...
Thinking here if he wants to attach on summon, he is going to choose to do that.
Any response here? Javier considering his cards. Decides not to use either of them.
Yep, he's going to go ahead and let that resolve and then attach. And then are we going to declare the duo drive here to try to get access to 2 more Ryzeal cards?
Imagine you have to push.
Yeah, he's thinking on resolution of the effect to attach before Bryan has an opportunity to use the effect of duo drive. Because we know that that set card is MTPO7 and he currently does not have access to a Maliss Link monster, we'll be able to get one because IP has been turned off this turn. I'm not sure how much... All right, so he's going to choose to GWCO 6. Unfortunately, something he could, in theory, do is like bring back the White Rabbit, get TB11, but he might not play that in his deck, and it probably won't be that worth it for him this turn anyway to banish his own cards.
Banishing your own card is kind of the name of the game with Maliss, but he is just going to slap down the Nibiru, the Primal Being, instead.
And target.
So he's going to chain target the other set card. Chain the MTP07, because it's been set already, you can just add a Maliss name to hand.
Really great sequencing here, because if the chain resolves as is, Javier gets to take advantage of all his cards without adding to the attack of the token from Nibiru, the Primal Being.
Bryan, I think, is debating using Crossout Designator on this Nibiru.
Wow.
That would be super huge.
Nibiru, the Primal Being.
Yeah, and he calls Nibiru the Primal Being, and so late stage, feeling out all the cards his opponent had, and now he's not even going to lose any of his monsters while basically forcing his opponent to use everything, sizing Bryan up for maybe not winning in this turn, but knowing exactly what's going on from here on out.
Yep, so there we go. Chainlink 5 going to be banishing that Nibiru, thus turning its effect off, and then he just concedes.
Yeah.
Javier says it's over, because he knows that Bryan's going to get access to a node plus cross, and that can get more than enough damage to go for game this turn, and Javier can't stop that.
So yeah, Bryan managing to just clinch that out with a great crossout designator. I still love that card so much. It's got a really interesting dynamic to it. Certainly has an impact on deck construction because sometimes you have to run some very offbeat cards, but the same way that you use Metal Tronus to out a Ryzeal detonator, Bryan has used it to out his Nibiru the Primal Being, so good work.
Yeah, there was definitely maybe an argument to Javier on his turn 2, trying to go for some kind of amount of damage to go for game that turn. He definitely had access to probably, you know, using the MTP that he said to go search for Chessy Cat, the name that he hasn't had yet, being able to go into a Link 3 from there, get access to his trap card GWCO 6 again, and then just get enough damage with something like Heart Scripter plus Decode Talker enabling. But he chose to go for the more conservative line and maybe got punished because Bryan drew into enough engine to try to break Javier's board, and the power of extra Ryzeal turning out that IP Masquerade and pretty much turning all of the bonuses that Javier gets out of his Maliss trap cards off.
Ryzeal certainly is a great starter, but it also can really be a great finisher, right? The Myriologic Aggregator having that threat all the time is so good, and we saw exactly that, right? The IP Masquerade couldn't do anything, and it basically disrupted any of the game plans that Javier had, so not necessarily something you have to plan ahead for, right? That's just a known feature of the Ryzeal deck, but Javier is going to have to figure out not only how to go first, but how to go first successfully.
Yeah, the hardest thing with Maliss sometimes is going to be the timing of your effects. Like, there's actually a really big argument that you should have activated, Javier could have activated GWCO 6 in Bryan's draw phase, because A, that turns off any potential of Triple Tentac's talent, because you get back White Rabbit, set another trap card if you have one in your deck. And then you can use IP at the beginning of your opponent's main phase, go into a Link 3 like White Binder, banish some cards out of their graveyard, and then you have access to your MTP07 as a non-target banish, which can turn Bryan off of getting any rank 4 access. But obviously, there's also no point in just using cards until your opponent reveals what their hand is, because Bryan had a not good hand at his last turn, and he only got 2 extra draws off the draw for turn and the Fuolo, so Javier's like, show me what you have, and then I'll respond. It's unfortunate that he had specifically extra Ryzeal.
Yeah, maybe a little too patient on this one, but you just never know until you know. There's a lot of these sort of 50-50 mix-ups that happen in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game where you get everything right, but with so many possibilities for that next draw, you can't really predict what's going to happen. You just kind of have to wait and stand by, and unfortunately, you're right, that didn't really happen to his benefit here.
Yeah, like all the plays Javier made in a different kind of game would have been perfect. You know, like there's everything he did was completely valid. It just didn't work out because of specifically what Bryan drew and how he played with those cards that he had in hand.
Hindsight's always 20/20. A lot of duelists beat themselves up. Be like, man, you're doing fine. It just happens sometimes. Like 1,430 duelists enter this building, but at the end of this YCS, we're only going to be crowning one. It doesn't mean the other duelists aren't good. It just means it wasn't their day. That's all that happened.
100%. And here we have both players done siding, done shuffling up. They have their opening hands. They are ready for this game too. Javier is ready to begin his run back here as the Maliss Bystial Fiendsmith player. Hopefully we can see the Fiendsmith cards come into question, because it can really help make the deck that much stronger in games 2 and 3 if players like Bryan are siding in cards that specifically target Maliss, like the Chaos Hunters, like the Lancias.
Certainly have seen a lot of success from the deck, but kind of hit and miss in the sense that there were a couple of great tops for it, and then it sort of goes under the radar. I think that Fiendsmith Bystial Maliss does really have like a high skill ceiling, but it also has so much potential if you just happen to hit those cards in the right order. Oh, so good.
Oh, yeah.
But looks like Smiles here as we go into Game 2 of our Round 6 of YCS Houston. So let's find out if Javier took the chance to go first and what his opening hand is.
All right, I definitely see a Dormouse at the very least, so we're going to see some fun Maliss action. But there we see the draw phase.
Wow.
Meowls coming from Bryan, an amazing inclusion from Supreme Darkness. That's another card that I guess we should have mentioned that also targets specifically the Maliss deck, being able to draw cards every time they summon from graveyard and banish it. But there we see the Ash countering that Meowls, thus negating its effects.
Certainly a little fist pump if you're a Maliss fan there, right? Because, again, Meowls is a powerful card and is going to get many, many draws. However, it's get no draws if there is an Ash Blossom Joy Spring at the ready. So we're going to go and activate Terraforming here and grab Maliss and Underground.
This version, specifically that Javier is playing too, loves these cards like Maliss and Underground, Gold Sarcophagus, basically any of the classic Maliss extenders, because they essentially are the ultimate cap-off or the ultimate beginning of your Bystial / Fiendsmith combos. There we see the Underground coming down here, choosing not to have the Dormouse come out, trying to conserve that normal summon or project a lot of strength by going for something like Chessie Cat here, because that's just one of the most powerful things you can do as a Maliss player is get Chessie, banish the Dormouse that you have in hand, draw 2 cards, still use the Dormouse effect in the same turn. Oh, it's so strong.
It definitely asks your opponent a question. Yeah, there's the Chessie Cat. Like, hey, you gonna let this go through? You really gonna let me take these cards? You really gonna let me banish another Maliss? And Bryan has to make that decision, although I'm not seeing a lot of interactions in his hand right now.
Yeah, but it's kind of a lose-lose situation if you stop that Chessie Cat, because you would only make this play if you have another name in hand, and I can just normal summon the name that I have in hand and still combo off anyway.
I love that we're getting into this guessing game format where you really just don't know what your opponent might have, and it makes the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game that much more fun. But yeah, no negation here. We're going to banish the Maliss White Rabbit, draw 2.
Then we're going to pay 300 more life points, go down to 7,400, and bring out the White Rabbit again. We at home know that he has Dormouse, but Bryan does not. So this normal summon Dormouse is going to go pretty hard, I think, for our boy Javier.
I will be watching Bryan's expression closely when the Dormouse gets dropped down, because if you really pay attention to these long YCS streams, take a look at the player cam every now and again. You'll see people like, oh, that is a card that does that, or oh, man, and the roller coaster of emotions that this is such a treat, too.
Ooh, is that Branded Regained in Javier's hand? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. It works for your own Maliss to recycle some resources and draw cards if you happen to have already used those banish effects. And you can use it against your opponent's Maliss cards, too, to draw cards and prevent them from special summoning, as long as the order comes out right.
So there we have the normal summon of Dormouse. We're going to go ahead and automatically link 1, it looks like here. Probably going to go for that classic honorary Maliss monster, Link Decoder.
The best Maliss monster.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate enabler for a lot of your sort of protection plays, being able to chain block. And there we see Branded Regained it. Oh my gosh. If he banishes the Link Decoder after summoning it back, he can put it back into his deck using the Branded Regain to get a free draw. That's really cool.
And what a consistent play, because you're always going to see Link Decoder. So anytime you draw Branded Regain, you know that this is in the cards for you. So really good deck construction, Javier, and now he's executing.
Yep, and there we see Mouse Q Whitebinder going to be using that effect as Chain Link 1, targeting some cards, and then of course, oh no, is he not using the effect? No, he is. He's targeting his Dormouse, and then Chain Link 2 is Decoder to summon. Beautiful. And the only Maliss effect he hasn't used yet this turn is Dormouse. That's going to summon back out to the field now because it was banished, going down to 7,100 life points.
So it'll be interesting to see what direction he goes here. Plenty of materials on the field. Could be going for something like an Abal Ku, Nightmare Griffin lock, depending on how he wants to slow his opponent down. Maybe just plays it safe and just gets a good Maliss sort of field set up. But Javier just taking a look at the graveyard there before he goes on.
Yeah, this is definitely the kind of board texture where if you and I tried to guess what he was going to do, we would probably be wrong 99% of the time because the options are limitless. Here we're going to see him go for the GWCO6, banishing the Whitebinder to get another body back, and then the Whitebinder's effect will activate. He can pay 900 more life points, draw a card, and summon it back. And specifically, he hasn't used the effect of Whitebinder to set from deck or grave yet, so we can just get that GWCO6 back for his follow-up on the next turn. Really powerful.
Follow-up certainly important there.
I think, honestly, we might see him try to go for his Fiendsmith engine here because he's only locked into Link Summoning. Therefore, he can use 2 of his monsters and go for Moon of the Close Heaven if he has it in his extra deck.
But we got the Infinite Permanents coming down there to keep that trap in the graveyard. So 1 trap for another. But you're right that right now we could just be Moon of the Closed Heaven and proceed into Fiendsmith Town from there.
100%.
I'll go Dormouse way.
So here we're going to activate Dormouse's effect. Fun fact, it hasn't used its effect to banish from deck. Even if he banishes a Maliss monster, they won't be able to summon itself, but it will be in the banish zone, and that could be important for any Heart Cryptor plays he might have later in the turns.
That's probably why he set up another Dormouse just to be able to get access to it later.
And he already has more than enough bodies to keep playing. Losing out on the 1 is no big deal.
Well, Bryan at least got the first game, but I'll tell you, Javier is just piling on the Maliss field from there, and now we're going to get to see that interested, branded, regained interaction here. See the Link summon first, though? It's Moon of the Closed Heaven.
There is that Moon of the Closed Heaven. That's going to be an amazing way for him to sort of cap off this turn. He's probably going to be able to go for something like, you know, I mean, we'll see, but like I wouldn't be surprised if this ends with a Baoaku like you mentioned.
It just feels like it's going the right direction for that. Plenty of materials on the field, including Fiends. But speaking of Fiends, let's go ahead and send off one Light Fiend to make Fiendsmith Requiem.
And this is where the real synergies of this deck comes in. You know, the fact that you did all your Maliss stuff and now you can do all the Fiendsmith stuff is just so amazing. You either get to use Lacrima, put Engraver in the graveyard, get more follow-up, get extra bodies. You get automatic Fiend monsters to go into Abawaku, which before was like a more tricky thing for this deck to kind of accomplish. Now it's super easy to do. I also want to point out, too, that Javier has drawn 4 cards already this turn from the Chessy Cat, the Regained, and his White Binder, and he has all this advantage still that he has yet to use.
Shows you how powerful this deck can be. I know that some of the matches that we've had on stream haven't necessarily shown the full potential of Maliss, and that's not the duel's fault, right? Sometimes duels just don't go your way. But this is a masterclass in some of the interesting things you can do with this deck, especially if you combine these 3 engines.
And this is after being Meowled, stopped, and impermed.
Well, he's just that good.
So there we see the Link 3 here. This is probably going to go for Cryptor, if I had to imagine. Yep, there is the queen of all Maliss monsters.
Yeah.
Going to be shuffling back that Moon of the Closed Heaven to get back out the Fiendsmith Engraver, and we can use this plus Cryptor to go into Abao, and then we can use Abao's effect to bring back the Cryptor that we just used to summon it.
Which is insane. But we are able to do that. So Bryan just verifying the contents of the graveyard there, maybe trying to think of what it is that he can do. With 25 minutes left on the clock, there's no reason to surrender just yet. Plenty of time to play more games.
So here we see the potential Link 2, the potential Link 4 coming from Javier. Again, if this isn't Abao, I'd be surprised if it was anything else.
Well, let's find out if there's a surprise in store.
Ooh, he's going to go for the SP
SP.
Little Knight. So he hasn't used the effect of Heart Scriptor to banish itself and summon back. He's going to pay 900. It'll come back and double its attack points. Honestly, this might actually be better than just Abao because now he has the potential SP banish plus the non-target banish of the Heart Scriptor. I actually really like this. Oh, and we have Lubellion to go into our Bystial cards. Oh, yes.
That's crazy.
100%.
This Lubellion still doing a lot of work.
So what this is going to let him do is, A, get Magnamut, which is an amazing way to sort of cap off his turn here and get so much more advantage because he can put Magnamut in the graveyard with Branded Regain, summon it back on his opponent's turn, get even more dragons. But he'll also be able to trigger his Maliss Whitebinder during his opponent's turn and then get all the awesome summons of things like White Rabbit, MTPO7, 2 non-target banishes, basically the main ideal of the Maliss archetype.
So he does end right there, exactly as you said, just relying on the Heart Scriptor, the SP Little Knight.
Yes.
So Bryan's got his work cut out for him. You certainly can play a lot of cards in Ryzeal, but it's going to be difficult to break through some of the weird interactions here. We are going to go ahead and see the X Ryzeal, though, and it's going to send Myriologic Aggregator. There's not really a good option here if you're trying to get Bystials out of your graveyard, and there's already plenty of lights and darks, so you might as well go for it.
Ooh, and here we see Bryan using the effect of Aggregated Target Cryptor. You're more than allowed to do that, but fun fact, guys, if this card is pointing to a monster, its effects cannot be negated.
That is correct. So it's you can use the effect, but nothing happens. Think spell cards versus Black Flame Dragon, or excuse me, Horus the Black Flame Dragon.
100%, yes. You're more than welcome to try to negate Heart Cryptor's effect, but it will not work.
Yeah, the correct response is, But now we are going to go ahead and see the Sword Ryzeal adding an Ice Ryzeal to the hand. We haven't seen the normal summon yet. I'm not sure if Bryan wants to make an Xyz monster here to sort of push the conversation forward before bringing out the Ice Ryzeal. It does seem like a good idea. You got to get at least some of this off the field.
Here we see Lacrima's effect going back into the deck and bringing out that Fiendsmith Requiem on resolution or in an open game state. We're now going to use Requiem, summon back out the Lacrima, and then we're going to dump a card from our deck to the graveyard. Probably going to be that Paradise, so that way if he does go for an Xyz summon, he can just automatically send it to the graveyard.
Great way to get that out for sure, basically jumping back and forth again.
Yeah, I was mentioning all the fun, like, Magnamut stuff that Javier could have done on his first turn, but I'm a greedy goblin. Javier is much more resigned to just be like, I have more than enough here. No need to overextend. I respect that.
Yeah, playing very consistently, very cautiously. Speaking of consistent plays, let's see Ryzeal Detonator, likely to attach a Myriologic Aggregator here. Does kind of help the situation, but at the same time, SP Little Knight could try to bounce, and then you would detach to destroy. Javier decides not to do anything about that, so we do see the Meteorologic Aggregator hit Detonator.
I think Javier's just trying to be like, I have so many effects that can interrupt this Detonator that I want to wait until I can chain it to the point where he won't be able to destroy any more of my cards.
Save card effects for real emergencies, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, until you're actually threatening me, there's no point in getting rid of stuff.
So commits to the normal summon here, the Ice Ryzeal, no response, so we're going to go and special summon another body here. I think Node Ryzeal is the only thing we haven't seen, but we're going to grab an X Ryzeal.
Like I said, I think Javier's fine to let him get all the way to Duo Drive because he has stuff like Paradise, he has stuff like SP, he has stuff like Cryptor that can all stop Duo Drive from going off. But what's Bryan thinking? Like, what's Bryan's line here? Probably something like Exoton Knight maybe could be useful, but I'm not sure. What do we have? We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
They're not getting anything, right?
It's double attack.
It's permanent 5K? Okay.
Yes, they were just clarifying how strong the Cryptor is. It's always going to be 5K after it summons from the Banish.
So wild to have a permanent attack boost there, at least a permanent attack doubling.
Oh, it's
Yeah, so when it, I guess they're just double checking. To my knowledge, it is a permanent buff because like it summons back with that number, and that becomes like a permanent stat buff. It's kind of like Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind. You know, like once you have it, it's always halved. Even if there's something like Axe of Darkness that you get rid of, it's still going to be whatever the halved number was.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Math can do some strange things sometimes. Speaking of math, looks like he's trying to solve the equation here of how he gets in.
Yeah, we're going to go battle phase. I think Javier's fine with this. He'll take 1,400 to still have a Cryptor in play. No big deal.
You don't have to attack this.
Oh, so yeah, there's just a clarification here. Because Maliss and Underground is in play, the only target Bryan has for attacks is Maliss Link Monsters. And that is a very big Maliss Link Monster.
Its effect was not negated. It couldn't be. So
Bryan is in his battle phase and has no good attacks.
Not a fun position to be in if you are trying to edge out a win here. Again, Bryan having the lead, having that first game, may not be able to clinch this one out, but still has a game 3 to go to with 20 minutes about left on the clock.
Oh, are they still in main phase, actually? Did I hear Bryan say still in main? Oh, they might let him take it back, I guess.
Interesting. So taking a quick look at the graveyard here.
That is a very full graveyard, as the kids say. and a known Magnemite in hand. Oof.
It's a rough position to be in.
Did Bryan just concede? Oh my goodness.
It sounds like it.
I wasn't winning anyway, I'm not gonna lie.
Strategically, you know, just conserving your time for the last game. This one kind of went on for a while, so very smart. Just go ahead and concede. So we can Javier the winner of game 2. There wasn't really a lot of path to victory. Even my Ryzeal brain was sort of ticking through there and thinking, how do you get out of this? There's so many card effects. And the answer might be just concede, go first, and get it done.
I mean, think of it this way. Like, if you summon Duo Drive, he just goes Paradise, send it. Cool. I don't get to use the effect. If you chain Detonator or anything, you can just go, okay, cool, non-target banish with Heart Scriptor. I don't even know if Bryan realized that Heart Scriptor could still activate its effects.
Yeah, it's a really hard
it didn't matter yet.
I think the two things of this format I want every duelist to remember is that when your true light goes back to the hand, it's not Eternal Soul. It's not going to clear all the blue eyes out. And Heart Scriptor, when it points to something, cannot be negated even though you activate it and resolved an effect trying to negate it.
100%.
I think it's like the two most common things we've seen throughout the tournament. I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone, but that's just some Yu-Gi-Oh! News you can use.
Those are easy mistakes that will definitely cost you games if you make them. Yeah, for sure.
Especially if you've been here, you know, the entire day, right? We are in round 6. Of course, we have 3 more rounds to go. So again, we always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. You burn all your energy, you chug those energy drinks, you feel great for round 1, 2, and 3. You might be slogging down through round 6. So look alive, duelists. There's still plenty of duels left.
And there we see that sort of meticulous, conservative nature that Javier had in game 1 really pay off for himself in game 2. Because there's totally a world where he blows through all of his interactions. Bryan uses Detonator, blows up all of his stuff too in response. And then Bryan gets to go, cool, empty board. I still have 2 level 4s. Let's go.
Trying to think of the strongest field you could start with if you're Bryan's position. Of course, that's going to depend on what cards you draw, but this almost feels like maybe he could use the Shark Monsters. We didn't actually see any Water Xyz yet, though. He got 2 Waters out, so we don't know if he's got Bahamut Shark or Totally Awesome. But he might try to play a board that just has just strong cards so that when he ends his turn, his ending field has at least something to put up some resistance.
It's still crazy to me that we can have so many Ryzeal matches and Eclipse Twins never comes up. Does that make sense? Like, that's such a powerful card for the deck, but you don't even need it sometimes to win these games and still be in really favorable positions, that once we see that card actually resolve its effect and why it's in the deck, you're like, oh yeah, Ryzeal was always winning that matchup.
You definitely have to have the Eclipse Twins there. It's a very popular choice, but it's a popular choice that never gets used.
It never needs to be used. Like, you're like, I could go into Eclipse Twins, but I'm like, I can just do my normal Ryzeal stuff, and that's enough. Kind of like how Javier was like, yeah, I could make a bow, yeah, I could do all this stuff, but SP plus Card Scripter, that's more than enough.
We've also seen how fragile the Nightmare Griffin and a Balaku, pair up can be. Sometimes just a single card to clear the field is enough, or something like a negation effect too. So maybe just choosing to put a lot of different points of interaction was enough to sort of push through, and yeah, Bryan conceded, and so we're going to game 3.
Mm-hmm. This will be interesting to see. Some of the cards that I do know most pure Ryzeal decks play are things like Star Leech, Photon Blast Dragon to like protect your cards from being interacted with by things like Imperm, Effect Veiler, or some of the popular breakers like Ultimate Slayer and stuff. That could be a thing we see, but Javier is more than happy just to play through all of Bryan's field using just Engine, and normally that's a big weakness of the Maliss cards. Like, if it's all your Maliss cards versus one Ryzeal Detonator, that's not usually enough to win the game. But when you have Bystial cards, as well as Fiendsmith cards, that by themselves represent a lot of pressure to the opponent and can eat up some of those Ryzeal Detonator interactions, all of a sudden your Maliss cards are more than enough to win the game.
Certainly can be. We haven't seen the sort of slug match that this deck can get into if both players run out of resources, and all of a sudden it's just 1,700 attack Ice Ryzeal looking pretty good.
Yeah, both players seem very content with just being like, I'm gonna control the board, manage your resources by using mine, and just go for game eventually. But I would really like to see maybe a more aggressive approach from Javier this game, because he is going second, and the Maliss deck has so much explosiveness. But he's maybe just content to be like, I don't need to do that unless that's my only option for winning the game.
Well, we haven't seen it, but it is interesting that almost throughout the tournament, at least all the featured match stage, not a lot of Ultimate Slayers happening. It was a very popular card during YCS, or the Team YCS Las Vegas, but it kind of feels like it's disappeared from the format. It's a great option for a lot of different decks, but no, it seems like duelists are content to just kind of play through whatever it is they see. And speaking of playing, it's time for game 3.
Yep, here we're going to assume that Bryan is going first. Both players have their opening hand of 5 cards. Best of luck to both of you. Let's see you go. Bryan is choosing to go first, and his opening hand consists of a lot of really cool cards. I definitely saw Simon Tachyon in there.
Okay.
And I'm also seeing, it's like a couple of points of interaction. Definitely said Ash Blossom enjoys Spring, but now we're going to start off with an interaction to really stop Ryzeal or slow it down.
But there we see Bryan's Ash Blossom.
Mm-hmm.
Game 2, we saw Mulch Army versus an Ash Blossom. Game 3, we're seeing Ash Blossom versus a Mulch Army as well.
Purlia is just such an unfortunate card to play against with Ryzeal, but if you have Ash Blossom, you don't have to.
Ragnar 0.
Ooh, so here we see the reveal of Ragnar Zero. See, I believe it's what, 103 Magna Zero. Going to be searching for a water level 4. I believe it's going to be that Surfacing Big Jaws.
Absolutely, and not a completely useless card either. It's not just a water target there. You also can destroy those cards that have different attack, and we just saw one with the Heart Scripter.
I put to the top, or...
If you're a duelist, there is just about 30 minutes left to register.
So cutting the deck here, grabbing that Surfacing Big Jaws. Now you've already activated the spell, so you can go ahead and plop that one out.
Yeah, not only can 7 Tachyon search the Big Jaws, but can also enable the Big Jaws to special summon itself because it is a spell card.
Our various times of your tournament.
This is very similar to Game 1 here. We're going to be grabbing that Drake Shark that we saw in Game 1, going to special summon it back out using its Poplar-like effect. And here we're going to go for the Duo Drive, or we're going to finally go into our Water rank 4s like you've been talking about.
It would be interesting to see a Bahamut Shark because, again, just being able to put up a little more resistance, right? Because what Ryzeal does so well, destroying cards, doesn't necessarily stop every deck. You do have to actually stop them instead of just stunt them, right? And now we're seeing our first Xyz summon here, and technically the 5th summon of the turn, and Javier the Primal Being would really hurt. But we do have Bahamut Shark.
But I will say, if Javier does not Nibiru here, he has no good chance to, because once that Toad comes down, Nib basically doesn't do anything.
So there's the Primal Being.
Oh,
and the Crossout
Designator.
Designator. Oh, nice.
Bryan's like, you never had a shot, Javier. My board was being made the whole time.
And definitely knows at least one of those cards is not helping his opponent during next turn.
Yep, and now we're going to get totally awesome out of the deck, most likely. Going to be summoning to the board here, and now we have a really powerful Omni Negate that could represent basically whatever you need to stop to keep playing.
Some great frog friends, but backed up by a Sword Ryzeal, so the hits keep on coming here. We're probably going to see 4 Xyz monsters on the field at the end of this turn.
Which, the more I think about it, is insane. Being able to summon 4 really powerful different Xyz monsters while ending on something like Ryzeal Cross, plus who knows how much follow-up, is really nice to see. Here we're going to see the power of the pure Ryzeal deck at its finest.
Definitely love these sort of boss monster decks. The last one I can think of that did something as crazy as this was Monadium, when it brought out Synchro after Synchro after Synchro. This feels almost like the modern-day equivalent of it for Xyz.
Oh, and there's the Starleech Photon Blast Dragon, the card you wanted to see, Bahamut Shark, and the card I wanted to see, Photon Blast Dragon.
Everybody wins if you're a Ryzeal fan, but not to be outcooked. Javier is still going to have to jump in this duel.
Ooh, there we see the Ash Blossom attempt here, but we could toad that to stop. If we get stopped here, we don't get access to Detonator, so it's really important that we do.
Going to tribute it. Does he choose to set? I don't think he would choose to set.
Wouldn't recommend that. Ooh, and here we see a really heads-up play from Bryan here, detaching 2 from the Starleech Photon Blast Dragon because Duo Drive can detach from anywhere, and that actually preserves Duo Drive's ability to increase the attack points of all Xyz monsters, thus making sure the Starleech Photon Blast Dragon is still 2,000 attack, so it has that protection.
Excellent play from both duelists. This has been a real masterclass of what you can do with these 2 decks. I know some people are like, oh, you know, I want to see some of the crazy stuff. This is pretty crazy for these 2 decks.
Also, Toad being able to add back that Surfacing Big Jaws to your hand because it was sent to the graveyard is so awesome. It basically is a protection of all your cards and follow-up in the exact same card.
Definitely a great and powerful card there. We've also got Ryzeal Cross at the ready, so we might be recycling to get even more resources here. Bryan does not want to go away from this duel without a win, and who can blame him, right? You do need 19 points to get to day 2, so every duel counts.
I think here's just debating if he crosses first or if he goes for Node Ryzeal first. Getting that draw seems really useful, but you want to make sure you maximize how many names you have. Javier could have Bystials, and so if you don't preserve enough non-light names, it could be pretty rough.
Definitely have to get in the habit of sometimes only sending your Fire Ryzeals to the graveyard so that when you do go for the Ryzeal Cross, you're not getting snatched by a Bystial.
So here we see the Node coming down. I think he's just debating what he's going to send away to get the summon off of Node. Oh, or are we overlaying into Eclipse Twins here?
I think so.
I really like this because what this will let him do is he can use Node to send his own Eclipse Twins, bring back something like the Duo Drive while still going for Ryzeal Detonator. And having a twin in rotation.
When we talk about not being able to see twins on the field, this is a definitely inspiring application of twins here. It is in defense mode, so maybe he's just going to leave it on the field.
Literally every monster you and I wanted to see, we're now seeing.
yeah, it's just a grab bag. I guess we'll just commentate into the future. But speaking of which, we're going to go and send with Node Ryzeal. Goodbye Eclipse Twins, and Eclipse Twins will go ahead and activate its effect shortly.
And he is choosing to summon that Sword Ryzeal, thus playing around any potential Bystials. But, oh, we have the Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit on the Node Ryzeal. That will not stop its effect from summoning, but that will get rid of the only other level 4 Bryan has. He'll still be able to Eclipse Twin, but I don't know how he gets the Detonator.
That is pretty rough, because, again, we got to see all these different Xyz monsters, and they're all gone at this point.
Oh, are they asking how Eclipse Twins work? Maybe they're just making sure that everything was properly summoned? To my knowledge, everything was.
Everything was properly summoned, that is correct. Including the Eclipse Twins, which is actually kind of a rare thing for Eclipse Twins.
That is true. So we are going to...
I will activate the twins.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the twins and the sword.
And Toad? Yes.
And...
No, not Toad.
Could do Toad.
Yeah, because the Duo Drive is summoned, you can summon the Duo Drive back while attaching the Toad, and that can give you some more value on your next turn by giving back your Surfacing Big Jaws.
But I think this is still the resolving of the effect of Eclipse Twins because it doesn't care about the levels of that.
Yes.
But the Ryzeal we're going to be attaching has to be attaching a Ryzeal monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Since it's
I'm
Duo
sorry.
Drive.
Yeah, exactly. Only Eclipse Twins can attack Toad. Yeah.
Because
But interesting, he wanted to go for the Ryzeal there, so... Gonna cross. I guess you're just hoping to find something.
And
but very importantly, like, if Bryan was not able to establish Detonator, if Javier has a Maliss name, he could very easily go for game this turn.
Certainly could. Again, this has been a wild turn, but to what avail?
all the non-engine that Javier had, it felt like it was going to be perfectly stopped by Bryan, having the Cross-Site Designator, having the Starlight Photon Blast Dragon, but Ghost Ogre, Snow Rabbit, Ash Blossom, and Perulia was enough to stop Bryan's whole turn. Well, I wouldn't say stop it, but definitely keep him off Detonator, the most powerful part of his turn.
Javier has definitely done a great job of protecting that, but remember, there's only 2 cards left in his hand, and we know one of them is Nibiru the Primal Being, so unless he just raw draws that Dormouse, the Dormouse may not be enough either, because remember, Ryzeal Cross is on the field, so there's at least 1 point of interaction right there.
100%.
Stand by.
Yep.
So we're into Javier's standby phase and main phase. Let's see what he summons.
I think he drew a Mulcharmy for turn, and I know he has Engraver in hand. So just Engraver is not enough because of the cross, but if you're Bryan, do you take the risk of crossing the first monster you see?
Let's find out. What does Bryan do?
This is
He
going to be a
furrows
make or
his
break.
brow, by the way. Talking about the player camera, he's really thinking about that.
But Bryan gets so much advantage by using this cross here because he can send the Toad, Toad get back Drake Shark summon.
What an awesome combo.
This is a tough spot for Bryan because any Maliss card is more than enough.
50-50.
Except Chessy Cat, I should say. Not Chessy Cat, but yeah.
Oh, he's going for it.
I'll cross.
He does choose to
he's
cross negate on
just-
resolution.
He's getting rid of the X Ryzeal. I like that because if the Ryzeal Duo Drive hits the graveyard, well, then the Toad will hit the graveyard anyway, so we can use that play, but interesting. Now he's just down to the one last card that isn't Nibiru the Primal Being.
And like you said, Bryan does know about the Nibiru, so his only thought from this point forward is how can I go for a game without summoning 5 times?
Well, with only so many slots left open, it may not be that difficult. So looking at the Fualos, not going to get any help there, but
Oh,
he's
he might have
summoning.
Typhon. He might have Typhon.
That sounds like a Typhon to me. Normal summon Mulcharmy Fualos.
Yes.
Grab extra deck. Yeah, that sings of Superstar Slayer Sky Crisis Typhon. I think Typhon Sky Crisis. My bad, chat.
Currently, it's 2,800 attack, and the Duo Drive is 26.
Who? No. All can be destroyed by battle.
Yeah, Starlight Photon Blast Dragon can only protect from being targeted, and there's no Detonator in play to protect his XZ's monsters.
Sure. I'm going to go Toad effect.
Yeah.
So he took, I believe, 200 damage there.
Drake Shark to summon itself.
Oh, and he gets the Drake Shark, and there's your second level 4 monster.
He's losing 100. I'm gaining 100, so 26, 28, so I take 200.
Yep, math is mathing.
200.
I mean, Bryan has more than enough XZ's monsters, but, I mean, Javier has a Nibiru.
Any from Grave or deck. Grave
Well,
or
he
deck,
also has Typhon, which is going to be difficult to use Detonator against because, as you know, it won't be able to use effect. It's at that magic 3,000. But now we're going to go and bounce. And looks like we're going to go just put the Shark Drake back, maybe make him burn the normal summon.
How funny it would be if Shark Drake wasn't once per turn. You just add it back, it summons back anyway. I mean, oh, it is once per turn.
Hey, it's a good card, but it's not that good. But it looks like play pass back over to Bryan. He knows he's got the Nibiru.
Does Typhon stop Nibiru from being activated in your hand? I actually don't know.
Ooh, let's take a quick look through Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron here.
It might. I think it just says monsters with 3,000 or more attack
3,000,
cannot activate their effects. I don't think it cares where they are.
So then at that point, it's going to be pretty difficult. I guess he's just hoping to hedge his bets.
So X send Eclipse Twins here, get Duo Drive back with an Eclipse Twins attached to it. Duo Drive on summon will get to attach again. Yeah, I think Bryan knows that Nibiru isn't activated because this line feels greedy otherwise.
Absolutely deciding to press on with some great Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge there. And yeah, it is just going to be neither player can activate the effects of monsters with 3,000 or more attack, period. Not on the field, not in the hand, not anywhere, just anywhere.
Wow, so Javier gave Bryan the freedom. Oh my gosh, there's Ragnar Zero, and currently the Typhon does have his attack chain.
Because of the Ryzeal Duo Drive. Oh, that is so cool.
Oh, that's beautiful, Ragnar Zero. You thought it was just a Tachyon search target? No, you can make this card, and it's really good. How many summons do we have here, though? Just want to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4 with this ice.
Got to be careful unless you have another cross-out designator in your hand.
Did he really draw another cross-out designator for turn?
I'm not sure, but it looks like he's turning to attack and maybe stopping here.
Oh, we have Ryzeal Cross. I'm a silly bean.
That's right, that's right. We always have Cross Out Designator. We have Ryzeal Cross Out Designator. Bryan getting some cheers from the crowd there. You may not have been able to hear that on the microphone, just people screaming from that.
Yeah, Ragnar's 0 for game is super impressive. That last match was really intense.
It really was. I mean, both duelists showed that these decks are just so customizable, right? You figure out what it is that feels good about your version of it, and they felt very comfortable there. But yep, Bryan, the winner of our game there. Kind of a relief